Oh my goodness. What a joy. What a joy to sit with you, to be with you. It's Cath, and this is the 40 Portal podcast. And today it's just me. Well, me and my allergies, which are like totally raging because spring is springing in the Hudson Valley and it's so beautiful. But the allergies are real, but I'm going to persist nonetheless. So it's just me today, except for that it's not. It is me and it is you. I have been filming these little dinky, shorty episodes on my iPhone, these little videos on some Fridays and posting them over on the 40 Portal Substack and labeling them notes from the portal. Which, pause, by the way, if you're not following the podcast on Substack, please come over and do that. It's a great way to make sure that you don't miss an episode. And number two, it is where I hope we can keep building community and having the opportunity to take the conversation deeper. So make sure that you're following the podcast over on its Substack. And I had been posting these Friday notes from the portal sometimes, not every Friday, because like girl is busy. And every time I went to post those videos, the technology, Substack, I guess, would ask me, do you want to push this to your RSS feed, which I think is the podcast? And I was like, no, I don't want to push these dinky little iPhone 7 videos to the RSS feed because there's no context for them and they're different than the main episodes. So I guess this is my way of saying hello and welcome to the official first solo episode of the 40 Portal podcast and the first official note from the portal from me to you. I'm pushing it to the RSS feed today. I also think that story is funny because it shows you just how utterly bad I am at tech. And since tech and living our lives on the internet and like doing our work on the internet, getting our news from the internet, getting our inspiration, our creativity, all that, like everything is through the internet in the last 10 to 15 years. And it just keeps getting more and more and more like that every year. We all know this. We all feel this. It's what I'm talking a lot about with my guests, and it's what I'm thinking a lot about and feeling a lot about in my own life and talking with my own people in real life about how precious and important our life off the internet is, truly. But because the internet has been so dominant, I've honestly felt like me being bad at technology has been like a blight on my character for the last 10 years. Like the fact that my iPhone is so out of date and I can't like figure out the RSS feed. But now I'm okay with it. Like I'm beginning to see not only is it not a blight on my character that I suck at technology, but like I'm kind of into it. I'm kind of into how analog I am. And really that's like the heart of the entire 40 Portal podcast project, which if you've been following along, Becca's episode is a good one to get the backstory for the podcast. The whole thing started with me bringing a notebook to my 40th birthday and asking the women in attendance to write out their questions if they were under 40, like the big, deep, raw, vulnerable questions that they were trying to live their way into. And if they were over 40, to share their wisdom, to share what they had learned and earned and burned. And I was like, hold nothing back. It can be short and sweet. It could be sexy and irreverent. It could be silly or serious. Like I'm here for it all. And that handwritten notebook is what has become the podcast, which is pretty freaking cool. And also I'm just surrounded by paper right now, including this book that I'm reading. It's upside down. And also pause. I know I'm like bashing the internet right now, but all of these episodes are also on YouTube. I record on video all of my guests, and this one is too, and I put it on YouTube I think because that's a place where some people consume podcasts or listen to podcasts, and also because I just love that we are truly real women, like real normal people. Like none of us are in glam. My hair is in like a funny ponytail. And we're just sitting there showing up exactly as we are every day. And I love to capture that really unglossy, unedited, unfiltered version of women like having these heart-to-heart conversations. So you can find us on YouTube. I will put that link in the show notes. But back to the book that I'm holding up in my hands. If you're watching, you already know what it is. You can read, maybe get your reading glasses. This book is called Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, and it's just sitting next to me because I was reading it while I was eating my lunch earlier. And the book is written by Annie Dillard, and I believe it's from 1974. And this is a book that I have been hearing about for a very long time. And I also want to say, yep, 1974. Annie Dillard is a writer, and I came across a quote of hers probably 10 years ago, and it has become like such a centerpiece mantra / like guiding light kind of piece of wisdom in my own life for about a decade. And I've read another one of her books called I think it's called The Writing Life. It's a book about writing. So I've been aware of her work for a while, but I'm telling you, these words are like so foundational to my life. It's actually wild that I'm now just picking up a second book of hers. And the words are, how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. God, so good. Just pause, let that one sink in. Think about that for a moment. Review the last 24 hours. I'm doing it too. But I'm reading this book, The Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, and I was like, should this be a 40 portal book club? Should this be our first book club book? And what I love about it is that it's just about the antithesis of 2026. It's so analog. It's actually like, and I say this in the best way, it's a pretty boring book. Like, it's very subtle. It's incredibly well written. Her words are insane. But she spends a whole year in this very Mary Oliver way, who's another like analog hero of mine. She spends a whole year just walking by the creek by her house, Tinker Creek, and she just shares her reflections of both the natural world around her and like the inner landscape inside herself in this book. And it's, yeah, like I said, it's the opposite of anything else that is being published in 2026 or how it even feels to live in 2026. So I don't know. Should we start the 40 Portal Book Club? That would be over on Substack. Let me know if you're interested. The Pilgrim at Tinker Creek from 1974 could be the first book in the book club. Okay, where was I? Talking about how bad I am at technology. Okay, so yeah, I just decided to make these little notes from the portal official and put them on the regular feed for the podcast. And the other thing that inspired me to do this is that I was sitting in real life last night at gymnastics, watching my kid like hop around doing this like quasi jumping jack thing. And I'm sitting in this row of other moms of women in my community, in my real life community. Shout out Lisa, shout out Jess, shout out Erin. And Lisa and Jess told me that they had gone for coffee last week and that the podcast came up in their conversation. They were talking about something from the podcast. I think it was something from Dinah's episode. And number one, that was just so cool, so meta. And it also, I was like, yeah, I believe you that you're talking about the podcast. I'm talking about the podcast. I think the podcast is pretty amazing. And I can say that because aside from this solo episode and the solo episodes I'll do here, I really feel like this project is so much bigger than me. And that this idea just kind of knocked me sideways, that I needed to sit with other women and record these really raw and edgy and vulnerable and brave conversations and share them out loud, because as I was turning 40 myself, I kind of suspected, and now I am confirming, that perhaps one of the most beautiful, creative, powerful, strong, wise, sexy, fun, innovative, and probably terrifying creatures in the entire universe is a woman in her 40s and beyond. The more of us who know that, who name it and claim it and say it out loud and begin to live it ourselves, like, just the kinder and more interesting and more beautiful, safe and loving and powerful this world will become in a different way. And I think we're really in that moment. So anyways, we're sitting at gymnastics last night and they're talking about Dinah's episode. And I think that's the episode where we mentioned frownies. Frownies, by the way, I don't know, come sponsor the podcast. We were all talking about whether or not we had used them, but Lisa was like, I keep getting marketed to them now. So that's a whole other thing about technology. But she turned to me after that and said, are you going to do any solo episodes? And I told her that yes, I had planned to, and I didn't quite know when, but here we are. So thank you, Lisa, for the invitation. I'm going to drink my water. And really the purpose of these solo episodes, I have my notes here. Yeah, okay, number one, it's like a Cliff Notes version of the podcast. I can just sit here and talk to you about some of the themes that I hear emerging because I am the one who has the pleasure and the privilege of sitting with every single guest on this episode and hearing their stories. And as I talk to each one of you, as I talk to each one of the guests, like all of these synapses are firing across my brain, my body, my being, my soul. And they're like connecting the dots on how much we all share. And that the more honest and specific we can be about our own small individual stories, like the greater chance we have at tapping into like resonant and universal wisdom. So I think what that means in like layman's terms is like the more you can show up and be you and tell your story and own it and share it vulnerably, the greater chance that whoever is listening to you will learn something about themselves, because the specific is really the best way into the universal. The personal is political, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So these little solo episodes allow me to reflect upon the last few episodes with my guests, pull the threads on some of the themes that I hear emerging. And also, as I reflect on each episode, which I'll do in a moment, I get to share some of the feedback that you are sharing with me. And in that way, the conversation just multiplies. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and more multidimensional. And I read every word that you submit and everything that you share back, every piece of wisdom that you share back, every question, every light bulb, every memory truly brings this podcast to the next place it's supposed to go. It brings this project to the next place it's supposed to go. So I will share some of what you're telling me in these little solo episodes, and also invite/beg you to keep sending me your words. I'll put this in the show notes. But this whole project was built on real people's submissions, their questions, what they want to talk about, what they are talking about, their wisdom. And I need you to keep submitting your own handwritten, or you can type it out, your own questions, your own wisdom, the topics that you're interested in. And that is what will anchor upcoming episodes of the 40 Portal podcast. So please, 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 nothing is too silly. Nothing is too small. Nothing is too wild or crazy or embarrassing. Like, I am truly here for it all. So please, 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 as soon as you're done listening to this episode, or even better, press pause, click the link, and put your words into the portal, because your voice is needed here. I promise it will make such a big difference in the impact of this project. So thank you. Thank you for that. The second thing I want to do in these little solo episodes, which, by the way, my poor little allergy voice, I can just like hear it failing. But thank you for listening and staying with me. I'm getting energy and inspiration just knowing that I'm talking to you. The next thing that I'll do is I will actually like take a piece of submitted wisdom from the portal or a question and read it like I do with my guests in my regular episodes. And I picked one today that just came in the mail the other day, and I haven't read it yet. So I have no idea what I'm about to read out loud on this podcast with you, which is great because my guests don't know that either. So I can't wait to do that a little bit later on in the episode. And then I think I will also leave you with a question to consider, a little like nugget to put in your own pocket and walk around with, to take on your walks, to sit with, to journal about, because that's the way that I do my work in real life, my work in my teaching and my work with my clients, and the work that I will do on the upcoming retreat that I'm hosting here in the Hudson Valley where I live in June, which I'll tell you a little bit more about at the very end of this episode. I have 2 spots left for that. Okay, so shall we dive in? Oh, before we dive in, I want to tell you, I got my hair cut this week. I chopped it all off, and the woman who styles my hair, Lourdes, she is, oh my God, she's a queen. She's a priestess. She's a sage. She's a prophet. She's a bombshell. And she also came to my birthday, and she was one of the first people to write in my notebook. She also brought, I think, the oldest woman in attendance to my birthday, the amazing, incredible, inspiring, beautiful Jerry, who I only know by first name, Jerry, who's 79. Lourdes brought her to my party, and they both submitted their wisdom to the portal. But Lourdes, while she was doing my hair this week, we recorded an episode. So you get to hear from her. It's such a good one. That will be out in a few weeks. But I was joking with her because I chopped my hair off this week. And I have to tell you that, like, aside from people telling me about what they're learning from the 40 Portal podcast, almost every woman that I talk to who's literally in the 40 Portal, like turning 40, about to turn 40, has turned 40, we're all either chopping our hair off or asking each other, should I get bangs? And like, bangs, love a bang. But I feel like a bang is also like, are you having an existential crisis? And maybe chopping the hair off is too. It probably is. Are you having an existential crisis, or is this just for fun? And since I'm having my existential crisis in public with you on the podcast, I think my haircut was just for fun. No, I'm laughing about that existential crisis thing because the other thing you're all sending me, which is amazing, and I try to repost them, but again, bad at technology, are like the millions of memes and reels and GIFs and all kinds of things that are happening on the internet right now, and just naming what you and I already know, that this is not an existential crisis, this 40 Portal. It is a powerful catapult into maybe the most potent era of our life here as humans. Like, I think it gets reframed as an existential crisis or like us losing our mind because it is so terrifying when we're able to pull back the layers and share more of who we really are from the inside out, not just what they told us we should be. So yeah, if that's an existential crisis, I guess I am here for it. Okay, so if you're watching on YouTube, you can see my short hair, and Lourdes's episode will come out in a couple weeks, and it's a really juicy one. Okay, so I think that is my entire preamble. Let me check my notes. Okay, I'm just going to dig in. I'm literally going to open my podcast app on my phone, and I'm going to go through each episode and just share a little bit about it. Okay, the first episode, it's the first full episode after the little like, welcome to the 40 Portal podcast intro. And this episode is called 40 is Your Sixth Sense. Friendship, creativity, and being cool because you're you, with Cath Schmieding. And this was actually supposed to be the second episode of the podcast because I had recorded a solo episode that I was going to launch with, wherein I interviewed myself with the 40 portal questions. And then once I heard that next to Kate's episode, I was like, oh, heck no, there is no way that my episode is supposed to start this project. It absolutely must be Kate Schmieding's episode. Number one, it was the first episode that I recorded with a guest. It was the first podcast episode that Kate has ever recorded, which is astonishing to me because, one of the things I love about her is that she is like a regular person with a regular job. And I love that. Like, she's a 9-to-5er, which I think is really cool, but she's also one of the most creative and, just her vibrant self people that I know in my life. And I'm like, why hasn't everyone had Kate Schmieding on their podcast yet? They will. This episode is one for you to listen to if you haven't already, if any of the following things apply. Number one, you just want to listen to a good hang. Our conversation is like the ones that we have in real life, and it's just like funny and saucy and witty. She has so many one-liners. I kept saying to her, I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. I have to show you because I haven't given this to her yet. It came too late for her birthday, but I actually did make her a t-shirt. That's great. Oh my God. I feel cool. I feel like me, Kate Schmieding. I mean, that was really such a crux of that episode, which was it's really cool to be yourself. And I think this is key and not at all obvious because most of us have spent the last 30 years, probably from 10 to 40, looking around at what everyone else is either telling us we should be to be successful, to be accepted, to be beautiful, to be desired, to be important, to be whatever, to be cool. or, and it might be we're so busy considering the needs and the feelings of everyone else around us first or totally before we even get to ourselves that we can spend many decades making choices for other people and not ourselves in our lives. And I just think that Kate has the most refreshing take on the coolest thing about me is that I am singularly me. I am not what anyone else told me I should be. I'm not trying to compare myself to anyone else. And if that is something you are exploring, me, who isn't, this episode is chock full of put it on a t-shirt wisdom. The other thing that Kate's episode is just a gem for is creativity. And I know that so many of us don't feel like we are able to be creative. Maybe you have a serious job. Maybe me, you were put in the box of something else growing up. For me, that was a liberal arts academic, which is how I ended up in law school, which is how I ended up becoming a corporate litigator. I put aside every little bit of me that felt creative because it didn't belong in the box that I was placed in. But I have to tell you that when I look back on my childhood, when I was 9, 10, 11, 8, 12, my favorite thing to do, how I loved to spend my time was sitting quietly in my room, reading books and writing in my journal. And that is inherently creative. And then I put that away for 20 years until I quit big law and started doing that for a living. And here we are. And so the coolest thing about Kate's creativity is that she didn't even start writing her poems, which are phenomenal, by the way. until she was almost 40. So I think it's like a perfect reminder of like, it's not too late. And I'm obsessed with that concept too. Like, I love all the people that just got started on the really juicy, interesting bits of their life in their 40s. I think there's something that runs so deep and so true about that. Like, it's not too late to start. It doesn't have to be successful in the eyes of anyone else. You can create because it feels good to create. That's what Kate said in that episode. And there's just so much wild permission there. So if that's something you're playing with, I think this is a great episode for you. And then the last thing I will say about Kate's episode, I have to take another sip of water, is that holy cow, she is such a good friend. She is such a good friend. I know this because I'm lucky enough to be her friend, and she talks a lot about friendship in this episode. And I know that friendship isn't something that comes easy to all of us in our adulthood. And so if you are in a moment in your life where you're considering anything about friendship, like, have I outgrown those friendships? What do I do with the friendships from 20 years ago? I don't have friends where I live. How do I make new friends in this new era of my life? Like, this episode is filled with like golden nuggets and also practical tips. So I think and if any of those things resonate, go listen to Kate Schmieding's episode and then tell me what else I should put on the t-shirt that I make for her next birthday. And what did you say about Kate's episode? Hold on, I'm literally going to pull up my little notes here. Oh my gosh, yes. Some of the feedback from hers was like, we are the achievement generation. Oh my gosh, yes, I am done. I'm done with that. I'm done reading about being the oldest daughter. All of this unpacking that we're doing, this is like a really good example of what your life can look like if you start to do that unpacking. And like how to hold those narratives about achievement and the stories we were given with the real vibrancy and authenticity of the life that you're actually living. Okay, yes, people were blown away when Kate says, like, oh my God, you can do the thing because you want to. You can do the thing, you can create the thing, you can write the poem, you can have the party, you can arrange the flowers, you can write the novel. You can do that thing because you want to. And that's a valid reason unto itself. Okay, so that's Kate's episode. I'll link to that. Make sure you listen to it if you haven't. Okay, next up, I'm doing the dance on full plates and holding complexity in your 40s with my dear friend, Clara Artschwager. I have to say, she might be the person that I am most frequently and with most intensity having these conversations with in my real life. We have a very deep voice memo friendship that goes back and forth most days, although we're trying to like rein it in a little bit so we can like get more of our book writing done and not just like put it in voice memos. But Clara's episode it's a softer one. It's a quieter one. It's a little bit more serious, which I love too. I love that contrast because Kate's episode is like kind of bawdy and sassy, and I think we curse, and then like Clara and I are pretty soft together. And Clara's episode is great for so many reasons. She's really wise. She has her own podcast and has for many years. It's called I Think I Like You. And on that podcast, she talks about dating and relationships. She's a dating and relationships coach, but really, and I think she would put it this way, and maybe I'm even quoting her verbatim here without realizing it, like the most important relationship that she's ever talking about is the one that we have with ourselves. And I think that really comes through in this episode. She's navigating new motherhood. She's my age, she's 40. And she became a mother in the last year or so. And so that has been a pretty intense transition in her life, as it is. As it is. She's also like kind of recently married too, like just navigating all these new roles and identities and like having all the plates in the air and seeing how all those things like fit together within her own sense of identity and herself. And it's so funny because this episode, wherein we talk about this concept that she and I talk about a lot in our real life together, which is the idea that there's no there. And what we mean by that is like We spend so much of our time like chasing the next goal, chasing the next thing to cross off our to-do lists, trying to convince ourselves that if we just could get a handle on our inbox, that's one of mine, or if we could just get a system down for whatever, managing whatever in our life, or if we could just stay on top of the laundry, if we could just publish that first book, if we could, whatever it is, if we could just make $1 million, billion bucks, like if we could just have that relationship, if we could just do that thing, then we'd be happy, then we'd be fulfilled, then we will feel like we have arrived. And it's this myth that keeps us like running on this hamster wheel of accomplishing and achieving and placing all the metrics and measures of our success, our worth, and our well-being outside of ourselves, which I'm saying really casually, but it runs so deep and it's so real. And just the freedom that comes with the idea that like, oh my God, we never arrive. There is no there. And yet I will tell you, I mean, I've been talking about this stuff for almost 12 years now, or over 12 years now in my work. And it is a lesson that I am constantly forgetting and relearning. Like, I'm telling you, a couple times a week, if not a couple times a day, I forget this. And truly, that's how I'm showing up on this podcast. That's how I'm showing up in all my work. It's like, these are the things that I'm still learning too. I am still learning that one. And so that was a real big theme in Clara's episode. So I would say if that resonated, if relationship stuff resonates, marriage, motherhood, that's going to be a great episode for you. And this episode feels like such a callback to an episode that was actually just got released last week with Francesca Choy-Kee Damico. So maybe I'll hop over to hers. Okay, we're hopping out of order now. And that was also such a quiet and subtle episode. The title of that one is We're Not Late, We're Right on Time, which is what we say at the very end of that episode. And I think, oh, that is such another myth that I think a lot of us are working through in midlife. It's that like somehow we're always in a rush and yet we're always still feeling like we're behind. This is another thing I talk a lot about in my work. And I feel it a lot. Francesca is also a new mother. I think her child is 3. And so this is a conversation about motherhood and identity and reclaiming a sense of who we are after we cross that threshold. But I don't know if you necessarily need to become a mother to like have that grappling of like who we are in terms of our identity and our work in the world. That is something like very specifically we're talking about in this episode in terms of identity. And it's something that she and I have had so many rich conversations on in our real life too. And she thinks about these things. Francesca thinks about these things so poignantly and deeply. Actually, one of you said to me after listening to her episode, I can't believe how vulnerably she shared and how she did that without needing to create a ton of context around who she is or why she was saying that. And I thought that was so powerful because as women, right? And maybe now this is something we're like playing with growing out of. I think we're trained to justify where we're coming from or why we're saying the things we're saying or like why we have the experience or the authority to say these things, or I mean that, but it's okay because ... And like the way Francesca just delivers her story, it's just so stripped back. There's no need to like justify who she is or why she's saying this or where she's coming from. That I think is like, and she does it in such a quiet way, in such an open way, and in a very like, I don't think that was something she was thinking about. I think that's just how she moves through the world. But that really struck some of the listeners as like, oh, yeah, I need more of that. I'll have what she's having. The ability just to like say what we need to say without overqualifying it. Okay, now I'm skipping around. So that was Francesca's episode. I hope we can edit out that cough. Okay. Right after Clara's episode was, this was one of my favorites. I have to tell you. And I don't like to choose favorites, but this episode is called Questioning Everything at 40 on Existential Crises and Creativity as Resistance with Dinah Alobeid. Dinah is a fucking firecracker. She is so much fun. She's a barrel of laughs. She is like, in kind of the same way as Francesca is just telling it like it is, Dinah is too, but Dinah's telling it from the total other end of the spectrum, which is just like loud and big and buoyant and jubilant and enthusiastic. And she and I think, really share that quality too. It's like there's not a ton of subtlety. There's a healthy amount of delusion with the two of us, I think, and in our conversation, you'll see that. And I love that about us. Dinah is, and she just asked the question, which is basically like, holy shit, as I turn 40 this coming summer, have I made all the wrong choices? Do I have the wrong job? Do I live in the wrong place? Am I supposed to be in this relationship? All these things. And she just said the damn thing. And I was like, whoa, everyone is thinking some version of this. And you just said it out loud. Thank you. Thank you for that. And it's just like, so we go to like really deep places in this episode, but it's a really fun pop culture-y episode too. Dinah hosts her own podcast. It's called Play This at My Funeral, which is such a cool concept. And Dinah has like a very serious day job. She's like a 9 to 5 or 2. She's a VP in the tech world, but she hosts this podcast about music. She's a dancer. She's a writer. She writes novels. Just like a really cool creative package onto herself. And the Play This at My Funeral podcast, which I'll link to everyone else's podcast, so good. She talks to her guests and they create like the soundtrack that they want played at their funeral that kind of holds the wholeness of who they are. And so she created a 40 Portal podcast playlist for this episode, and that's linked to in her show notes. It's just such a fun episode. I laughed so hard that I cried, whereas in like Francesca's episode, I just cried. So I love it. It's very full spectrum, which I think this is just like another part of the podcast that I love so much, is that like we fucking contain multitudes, each one of us and all of us together, and that our stories are so different. There's not just one woman in midlife, even though like if you go on social media, like the algorithm really tries to flatten us out. And I think that's another thing that I'm hoping to do with this podcast, is to show the complexity and the nuances of who we are. And maybe that rolls me, I'm just jumping all around here, to Alison's episode, which is called And Now It's Like This, on the grief and freedom of the life that chose you, with Alison Matheny, who is, this is another really fun episode that also gets pretty serious. This is the first time that Alison has been on a podcast, and I was kind of shocked by this because she just has such good presence. Like she gives so much in terms of the way she shows up, of like herself, and she's funny, and she's like, not raunchy. Body, I keep using as a word. I think that actually does describe like a woman who's actually showing up as herself in midlife, like the ability to have a cackle or a belly laugh and just say something absurd because it is that way. I think that's Alison. In fact, the first time I met her, I was just amazed by her humor and was so drawn to that, her like witty observations. Alison's episode also, in her show notes, she has a top 10 list of things that she would recommend, like just in general in life. And it's a really funny, good list. So you'll have to check that out. Everything from like her sports bra for running recommendation to like books that have really moved her. It's a fun, also on the list is 1.5 Dirty Martinis, which I think is like very funny, and having had dinner and drinks with Alison many times, I'm like, that's exactly right, Al. That's exactly right. But Alison, it was her first time on a podcast. I think she's entering her podcast era. I hope she is. And the story that was really important for her to share, to be able to show up and share, and Alison is 44, she'll turn 45 this summer, is that she is childless by circumstance. And that's her language. And so it's not a story that we see or hear very often. Childless by circumstance. I think we hear a little bit about childless by choice. We hear a shit ton about motherhood when it comes to women. And to hear her kind of talk about the arc of how that experience went for her, of like the portal opening for her around age 37, and kind of very much that question of whether she would become a motherhood or a mother was very present in that portal for her. And now where she's ended up in the middle of her 40s, and like what that means for her and how that shaped her life, and how it does carry with it both grief that is real and also freedom and freedom and the ability to make choices in her life that she is absolutely doing. She's a business owner. She owns homes in 2 places. She's a snowbird already, which I just and also love that detail about her. So I check out Alison's episode if you're curious about that, especially if it resonates with you as like someone whose choices are not always represented. So Alison's episode is chef's kiss, so good. Okay, and that leaves me, let's see. I know I still have to talk about Becca's episode. Let me make sure I'm not missing anyone else and take a sip of my water. Thanks for bearing with me today. Okay, we got Kate, we got Clara, we got Dinah, we got Alison, and we got Francesca. So that leaves us with on Fawning, no longer the village and refusing to disappear after 40 with Becca Piastrelli. And Becca also has her own podcast. It's called Belonging. It's fabulous. She's really special to me because she and I turned 40. Is it a day apart or 2 days apart? Our birthdays are really close together. Shout out to July 1985. And so last summer, in the weeks before our birthdays, she and I would send each other voice memos back and forth, like really deep, raw, vulnerable questions and like scarily honest answers, like things we had never said out loud to each other. And this like very it just felt kind of ancient, this exchange, even though we were doing it over voice memo, just this kind of call and response with another woman, like standing in a threshold together to be like, hey, how you doing? How are you feeling? What matters to you? What are you terrified of? What are you letting go of? What do you really want to claim? And it was one of the coolest experiences I think I've had in my life, that ability to have that call and response with another woman as I turned 40. We didn't plan it. It just started happening organically. And summer in the Hudson Valley is really beautiful. And I don't think I will ever forget like sitting on my front porch in the morning after getting my kids to camp and like listening to her memos and sending her messages back. And it was truly what inspired me to bring that notebook to my 40th birthday and what became this whole podcast. And so it felt so important to sit with Becca and both kind of create a richer picture of the origin of this project. And also, she's so goddamn wise and good, and she's doing the work, and she's teaching the work, and she's living the work. And she's in another portal right now because she's about to have a baby. So I'm sending her so much love. And that episode, it's just like wisdom after wisdom after wisdom after wisdom from her. I was actually listening to it earlier today as I was cleaning up my office. And I think on Fawning No Longer, I chose that as part of the title. I don't even know how much we talk about that in there, but I think that's the piece that I'm personally working on the most in my own life, which is really like the portal thing that I'm in right now is setting boundaries and not trying to like bat my eyes and freeze and like make everyone around me feel like really good at the expense of myself. And so I really walked away with what she had to say about that. And this episode is also wild. You have to listen to it all the way to the end because I pull from the 40 Portal notebook and I read Becca, what she wrote in it, because someone who's a little bit older than we are responded to what she wrote. And the topic is basically, do women have to disappear as they age? And what that woman wrote in response to it, like, blew our minds, gave us so much freedom. I'm not going to give it away. You have to listen to that at the end of that episode. Okay, so those are the first 6 or 7 episodes of the 40 Portal. And I would say overall, like, the themes that emerged without planning are really our relationship to motherhood, our identity, our relationship to ourselves, how we present ourselves in the world, how we claim more of who we actually are versus who they told us we need to be. How we are learning to trust our choices, how we are using our creativity as fuel, as resistance, as fire, as examples of like who we are from the inside out, of the importance of female friendship and creating like a meaningful village of people and women around you, and how important it is to like seek those relationships out, even if it's just, and I put that in air quotes, like being a part of something like this podcast, listening to it, adding your voice to the podcast, commenting on it, sharing it. Will you share this with, I'm going to say 3 women. Will you share this episode or an episode that you loved the most with 3 women who you are actually having these conversations with in real life? That would mean so much to the life and the power of this project. Thank you for doing that. But as we move into the next little batch of episodes, I am talking, it's like 4 or 5 in a row that have a lot to do with career. And that's another huge topic that I'm finding emerging in the 40 Portal, is like how we're shifting and reflecting on the choices we have made in our professional lives at this juncture. And if we haven't really met before, if you're new to me and new to my work, you might not quite have the full picture, but I was a corporate litigator in a past life. Like I was like the check the next right box and the next right box and the next right box kind of girl my whole life. Like do the thing, get the grade, keep moving on, get all the head nods of approval, do the thing that made the most sense, do the thing that got the most applause, do the thing that looked great on paper again and again and again. Like I was always passing go, collecting $200. And I ended up in a really serious and flashy professional life that just did not suit me at all. Like the world clearly did not need me to be another corporate litigator at a big law firm in Washington, D.C., like right next to the White House. Like, and that's what I spent my mid to late 20s doing. I mean, I guess I spent most of my 20s in that because I was in law school and then I worked in DC at my law firm, and then I quit when I was 28. And from that place have gone on to do the work that I do now, which doesn't really have a job title. I teach meditation, I teach yoga. I've done that for the last 12 years full time. I did that in Washington, D.C. right after I left big law. And right away, I was like also going back into law firms and companies and corporations and doing, the workplace well-being work, talking about mindful stress management and work-life balance and all that jazz. I still do that work too. But in 2020, my husband and I left Washington, D.C. and moved up to the Hudson Valley. And we now run a little literal mom and pop brick and mortar yoga and meditation studio here in the little town that we live in. But I also do this work with women. I've led women's retreats for 12 years. I do one-on-one coaching with women who are sitting in their own big threshold moments. And this June 17th through the 19th, and I have 2 spots left, I am hosting a women's retreat, small, intimate, here at the studio in the Hudson Valley, and it'll take place over the course of 3 days. And in this retreat, I'm really excited about it, I have to tell you. And many of the women, not most, but many of the women who are joining this retreat, they are alumni of doing work with me, either one-on-one coaching work, or they have participated in a program that I created in 2019 that I have since been working on turning into a book. I'm still working on that. And this framework, this methodology is called 40 Early Mornings. And it's so wild to me because the fact that this work that I've been doing for 7 years has the number 40 in it. And now the 40 portal has the number 40 in it. And I'm 40. Like there's so much, I don't even know what to do with that symmetry there. The bulk of this work, the framework, the heart of this work is really teaching people to create their own daily practice of self-inquiry, of self-reflection, of self-compassion, and self-sovereignty. And the tools that I teach in 40 Early Mornings are seated silent stillness, aka meditation, and written reflection, like how to have your own daily journaling practice. And also the whole thing is kind of, the whole habit formation is triggered around reading something beautiful and inspiring and meaningful at the beginning of your practice. So it's a really great way into this kind of framework of showing up for yourself every day, especially if you love to read. Like if you're like, oh my God, I really want to slow my mornings down. How the heck do I do that? And like nothing sounds better than like starting with just a few minutes of quiet reading and then moving into the written reflection and then moving into meditation. And I define practice, and I always have, as any silent, sacred, solo tasking time that you set aside for yourself to come back to yourself. That's not a self-improvement plan. It's like literally designed for those, all of us, like we go out into the world, we give so much of ourselves. And I know I wasn't taught this. And so this is really what I've been interested in for the last, decade and a half is like, how do I remember myself? How do I come back to myself? How do I make sure that I'm doing my life from the inside out? And that really, the anchor of that is what I'm teaching in 40 Early Mornings. And that is what I will be teaching at the retreat. That is what I will be teaching, that framework, that methodology. And then also the retreat happens right before the summer solstice. And I always kick off a new round of 40 Early Mornings at either the solstice or the equinox, which is a threshold, a portal unto itself. And so we'll spend the next 40 days after the retreat from the summer solstice on in this kind of virtual container of committing to 40 days of practice with ourselves and alongside each other. So one of the beautiful things about the retreat is that you get to really invest in your own inner work, but it's also inner work in community, which is a whole other powerful tool in its own right, and one that when we put next to this solo single tasking sacred time, it can just make it so much more powerful. And really that inner work and community is what has evolved into this 40 portal project in a way that I could never have imagined. And I'm excited in the retreat to also fold in this new 40 portal methodology, which is really the framework of using storytelling, our own storytelling, and sharing and listening to each other's stories as a way to amplify that inner work in community. And so we'll be playing around with that with each other. And also, like the aspect, obviously, of this podcast is the idea that intergenerational wisdom has so much power. And I can't wait as the season unfolds. You'll hear from a woman in her 30s in the next batch of episodes, and then batch that comes after that, we've got a woman in her 60s, and I want to interview women from all decades of life too. So more of that is coming. But golly, especially when we live our lives really flat on the internet in these echo chambers, like it's so easy just to see people who are like exactly your demographic and your age, and like we just know that that's like more of what we're already getting. And so the ability to sit with women in real life, already the retreat has women in their 30s and their 40s, maybe 50s, I'm not sure, and 60s. So the idea that you get to sit shoulder to shoulder in a circle with other women and hear just what happens, how you can widen your own lens by hearing a different perspective from a woman who's at just a totally different decade in her life. It's so powerful. And then I think, of course, the most powerful thing about the retreat is that we'll be together in person, in real life. And I think I said this at the top of the episode, we spend so much of our life on the goddamn internet. Like, come, be together, breathe the same air. We'll create something together that will never happen again, ever in the history or future of the universe. Like that singular experience of us gathered together in that room, in that space, taking those walks at sunrise, like sitting and breathing and being together and sharing our stories, that will never happen again. Okay, I have 2 spots left. I think if one of them is yours, you should just DM me. I don't know. Find me somewhere. I'll put like a link to a very short application here so you can grab that if it's yours. I'm really deeply, deeply moved by the opportunity to sit with you in real life and to bring together these 2 modalities, these 2 methodologies that are so central to my work, 40 Early Mornings and the 40 Portal. Okay, so that's all I got, except for I have one more thing, which is I'm going to read for the first time. I haven't even seen this submission to the 40 Portal, and this is from an upcoming guest of the 40 Portal. You'll hear her episode in the next batch of episodes on career and professional life and corporate and all that stuff. And so this is what she wrote to me. I haven't read it yet. Catherine. She's so good at mail too. Like, oh, so good. You asked many moons ago for some wisdom I could add to the menagerie, collage, mosaic, oh, so good, quilt of what you've received from women in middle age. And mine is a simple question I ask myself when I start to feel my eyes squinch or my throat tighten. My face gets hot, my head pounds, any body signal, hi bodies, and a smiley face. What do I need? So juicy and just right. What comes next is true love. Thanks for loving us. That's from Emily Drake. Her episode will come up in a couple weeks. What a great question. What do I need? I'm going to ask myself that right now. I probably need to end this podcast and like go drink some tea with honey. Oh, I have a couple more hours before I have to grab my kids, and I think I will go back outside to the garden and weed and put my hands in the dirt. That is what I need. Okay. That is all for now. So much more to come, but just enough for now. Thank you so much for being here. I'll leave you with my 3 asks, I guess. Send this episode to someone who you know is not listening but should be, who needs to be, who wants to be part of this conversation. Add your voice to the portal. That's number 2. Your questions, your words, your advice, your topics, they can anchor an upcoming episode. And then while you're at it, if you can leave us a 5-star rating and review, that helps women find the podcast. It helps other listeners find the podcast. It's so important. It's so helpful. And come on the retreat. Come. Ours is not a caravan of despair. There's some roomie for you. Okay, I gotta go. I gotta go drink my tea. I'll see you right here next time. Thanks for this first episode. That was fun.